Well, good evening, everyone. I'll open the June 26th, 2023 meeting of the Grafton Planning Board. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting of the Grafton Planning Board is being conducted with both in-person and remote participation by board members and members of the public. Remote participation by the public for the public comment agenda item, the public hearings, and any other matter for which the board allows public participation will be via the Zoom raise hand feature. If you raise your hand on Zoom, you will be enabled at an appropriate point to enter the meeting via voice or video, to make a comment or ask a question. In all cases, whether in person or remote, please identify yourself by name and address for the record. Every vote will be taken by roll call. Please note, this meeting is being recorded as well as being broadcast live on the Grafton Community Television government channel. Time for a roll call to see that we can all hear and be heard.
Mr. Robbins.
Present.
Mr. Davison.
Present.
I am here. Mr. Hassinger.
I am here.
Staff present. Natalia Allward.
Present.
And Fiona Coughlin.
Present.
I don't think we have anybody on any maybe participants. Oh, one. I don't know. I see one attendee, but when I click for it, I don't see a name.
Yeah, Jim was on as an attendee initially,
Okay.
and he is now up.
Oh, alrighty. We can start, I guess. First item, public input. This is where people can talk to us about something within our scope of responsibility that's not otherwise on the agenda tonight. Is there anyone? Apparently not. We'll move on to 88-90 Miriam Road, A&R. And this is the one that we cannot address tonight. Fiona, can you explain why we can't address?
Yes. So we will not be addressing this item tonight, as the applicant was not able to submit the additional materials to make it a complete application. I followed up with them last week, and they have some administrative stuff that they're working out with their land surveying team, so they'll be back at a later date, but we cannot discuss that tonight.
So nothing's been submitted. They submit through the clerk's office, don't they? Some places a date that they count 20 days from, 21 days.
Yes. So we put them on the agenda to honor the 21-day requirement that we are held to. But we have the application information needs to be resubmitted. Yeah,
well, but has something been done to cancel out the clock from the initial submission? So you get a date from the clerk, don't you, when you submit an A&R?
I believe so, but Natalia looks like wants to speak.
So if they don't have a complete application, we usually check with that. They don't submit it to the clerk yet. So there is no date started for this. However, since they were going to submit it, and if they had submitted it, let's say Thursday or Friday after we posted it, then that 21-day period would have been very close. So that's why we put it on the agenda, but then they ended up not being able to submit it. So that's why it's on the agenda, but it's not being addressed.
So we put it on the agenda in anticipation of them submitting it, but they have not.
Yes, because they said they were going to be coming in with the material, but they did not. They came in they emailed a few items, which is not a complete submission, and they never came in with the rest of it. So unfortunately, that's bad.
Who's handling that one? Who's the engineer or whoever?
Norman Hill.
Norman Hill. Okay, well, as long as we don't have a clock ticking, that's fine. We'll move on.
Yep.
Approval under subdivision control not required. 118.5 Old Westboro Road, Edward Whitney.
Hi, that's us.
That's us.
It's actually Rob and Grace Diverty. Ed Whitney was the
former.
previous owner who's deceased now.
Well, Fiona, do you want to tell us anything first?
Sure, absolutely. I was just going to chime in. Let me just pull up so this application for an A&R for 118.5 Westboro Road and 8 Morgan Drive. It's pretty standard. They are looking to add a lot line to split 118.5, 118 and a half Westboro Road into lots 1 and 2, and then they are modifying the lot line of 8 Morgan Road to allow for more lot area on lot 2. I believe that's yes, I got that correct. Sorry, that was a confusing way of saying that, but yes, they're splitting the lot, and then they're adjusting the lot line, the property that abuts 8 Morgan Road, or also known as Lot 3, based on the plan. We corresponded back and forth briefly about the draft, noting some minor administrative tweaks that I typically will do when I'm doing a preliminary review with folks that are submitting an application. One thing to note here, the shed is being removed and the wetlands were recently flagged by Ecotech. I did notice in my review that from a previous site plan that was recorded in the Worcester Registry of Deeds, the wetlands looked a lot different, but the land surveyor, which I believe is Kevin Jarvis, confirmed that the wetlands as presented here were the most current data and recently flagged. So other than that, I really didn't see any other issues in terms of conformance with Massachusetts general law, frontage, access, etc. This application looked good to me, but happy to give the applicant an opportunity to speak more to this and have explain if I missed anything.
No, I think you got pretty much everything, Fiona.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You should identify yourselves for the record.
Oh, I'm Robert Diverty, and this is my wife, Grace Diverty.
Hi. I'm a little curious, maybe Fiona, looking at the drawing, the large lot on the right side,
Yes.
it's taking its frontage over on the right. Yeah, right there. Is there any unaccounted for land between the top of the lot and the road? You see where I'm saying?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
That's kind of odd.
Yeah, that's a good question.
As long as they have frontage, I'm not sure that it makes a big difference, but that's.
Yes, they should. And the unaccounted for land, that wouldn't be an issue here. Sorry, I'm just trying to read. It looks a little far away.
Yeah, I can't, it's nowhere near my screen. And
Let me pull up.
There is ownership information on there.
Yes, there is. It looks like it is a separate lot of land. It's 4 Morgan Drive there.
Yeah, it's a weird lot. Yeah.
is it developed at all?
Yeah, there's a house on it.
Yep.
It's
Oh,
just a very long, narrow lot.
Yeah, I don't ever remember seeing that, and I remember the subdivision more than once. Okay, well, any questions about this? Any issues?
I move that we find approval is not required and direct staff to prepare the appropriate documentation.
Second.
Moved and second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Robbins,
Aye.
Mr. Davison,
Aye.
I vote aye. Mr. Hassinger,
I vote aye. motion carries. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you very
All right. As-built plan endorsement, 274 Providence Road.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Fiona?
Yes, so sorry, I didn't know if I should just jump in or wait to be called on. So this as-built plan for 274 Providence Road was recently submitted to us. It's kind of the last step that the developer needs to take before they can start getting their certificates of occupancy. Myself and Jeff Walsh from Graves Engineering went out to the site and checked, we did an not only a kind of construction completeness review, but we also did an as-built acceptance plan review and found that the plans were, essentially constructed substantially in accordance with the approved plans. So ultimately, Mr. Claro is going to need to turn in his Mylars. He was supposed to do that today. We have not received his Mylars yet, which is obviously the document that's going to need to be uploaded to the Worcester Registry of Deeds when it's ready. And he did what the main thing that's missing here from the PDF format is the signature block. So he's aware that he needs to add that signature block, and he should be doing that. But tonight we wanted to put it on the agenda to have the board approve, potentially approve with modifications should they see fit. So that's where we're at with this. It's kind of the final step for them. And I should also note that when I did my construction completeness visit with Graves Engineering, they were basically all of their conditions and their original decision had been met. So this is their final step.
I have a question. Mr. Hassner, we do have a member of the public here who would like to speak.
Oh, in the hall.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, let's hear from them.
Hi, my name is Bruce Phillips. I live at 33 Elmwood Street, and I work for Green Acres, Grafton Housing Associates. And we've been on board with this project going on for one stipulation that they had on the original plan, and that was a row of trees and that little jog on the, if you go to the left with that arrow, right in that area, that was supposed to be trees for the simple reason there's one building, one of our apartment buildings sitting there, and you're looking right down into the living rooms and the kitchens of those and the back patios. They did put up a 6-foot fence, but the way the building is built, the first floor is the garage, second floor is your living room, kitchen, dining room, and the deck is right on the back, and you're looking right off that deck. I've got a picture showing you what it looks like from my patio up to theirs, if you'd like to see it. And, like I said, they were supposed to put those row of arborvitaes in there. That's looking from my patio in the middle of the building.
That doesn't help me a bit.
I'm seeing it. I can turn off my blur.
First of all, my screen is mostly the plan, and I'm not having much luck
Well, let's get the
there. Well, that's closer. All right. That's the fence we're talking about.
This is the plan.
Okay.
Was given to us, or it's online actually, and right here it says proposed tree line. And that's the only reason why I didn't put up a stink way back in the beginning. Because I knew this building was going to be high. And our building is low.
I get the plan up, Mr. Robbins. If you want to have me share, I can do that.
Yeah, you should be able to share.
Screen.
Natalia has her hand up on Zoom.
Go ahead, Natalia.
I just wanted to mention that we can't hear anything that the gentleman is saying.
Is he saying anything?
When he did.
When I did, I gave them a picture of what it looks like from the patio that is right behind that building. And with the proposed tree line that was on the original plan,
My computer just locked up on me when I tried to share.
Oh, let's see. Let me see if I can find that. So this is the last plan in the folder on the approved site plans.
I think one page even shows the description of a profile of the proposed trees that were on, at least on the west side of that.
right, they put the trees on the wrong end of the building.
Yep. So they have those right that you just go past. And they have those proposed trees right there.
So there's that whole tree line on the side, there's a proposed tree line there. So, Fiona?
So if I may just speak to this, yes, so the tree line along the side there, that was completely installed, and the proposed tree line was something that was written into the plans. This obviously predates me, so I can't, exactly speak for the town planner at the time, but it was put in as exactly that, a proposal, without, technically having to install the tree line. The fence was put in, and there was a significant amount of clearing and cleaning of shrubs, what I understood, as well as significant improvements back there. And when the developer was explaining to us the situation, we weren't saying we didn't technically have the ability to enforce. I mean, again, I'm happy to assist in any way that I can to make modifications, as well as address, speak to the developer and circle back to this. But it is a proposed tree line, and not the, definite
6 foot fence.
has to be installed in terms of plan approval and as-built acceptance review.
I'm trying to remember from the meetings themselves, but I had the impression coming out of that the developer was expecting to plant those trees there as well. And I could have been, I could have missed that it still said proposed, and it could have meant something that I didn't think at the time, but I certainly had that impression that they were planning on planting those trees as well. They just didn't have the exact locations identified, in that spot, in those spots, like they did for the.
Well, I've been going by this plan and, waiting for those trees to go in there, and I've even asked, the guy that was doing the excavating, he says, they're gonna be planting trees back here, and he said, don't know. They put up a fence instead. 6 foot fence. He's sitting on that first floor patio. You're looking right in my windows. Granted, arborvitaes take a little while to grow, so it'll be a couple of years before they get above the 6 foot fence. But, that's what we're looking for is something that a 20, 30 foot arborvitae back there, a row of arborvitaes to block them from looking right into the windows. It's not, and actually, it's the people living there too. You're sitting on your patio. You really want to look into somebody's windows, especially at night.
I understand.
If I may, and my recollection was so this was first brought to my attention in March, and I immediately notified the developer and asked to make sure that this was accounted for. I will say, when we did go back and visit at our site, he said that he would be able to do this. So let me speak to him and work on a resolution. I think that that's the best way forward here, because he wasn't opposed, but he said, it is technically a proposed tree line. But he could install it.
You're doing it.
Yeah, I think we probably generally had the impression that was going to be done.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So
do we
doesn't
want-
show a fence on it.
So do we want to continue this to a future meeting, or vote to table it until we're ready for it?
Yeah. I would think that it would be appropriate to defer further action on this until the question of the trees gets resolved.
As long as he puts the trees in, I'm happy. And I think the people down in the Green Acres will be happy too. The ones that live in there right at the moment won't be, but once they grow, I mean, it'll be,
It's too bad we can't plant fully grown trees.
Well, you could, but you can't afford it.
It's
Yeah.
very
Yeah, they-
cost prohibitive to do.
They do that with big palm trees,
Yeah.
but I've seen pictures of it.
Well, you could put a row of palm trees back.
Not easy. Okay,
So,
well, is there anything else that we need to look at tonight on this?
I'd say
I-
seems to
I'm
me
not aware of it.
right. If the trees are the only question left open at this point, everything else looks good.
everything's fine. I mean, it's, the building wasn't a problem. I knew it was going to be a big building, but
Yeah.
you're looking down because it's dropped down into my building.
Yeah.
And you're looking right in there with all the bedroom windows up there and everything else.
So
I think we understand that,
yep. I think,
trying to
I
figure
think
out
we're
how
good.
we go forward.
Yeah, we don't need a vote at this point.
Okay.
I think with this discussion, I think we understand the situation, and we'll come back to the board's attention once the question about the trees gets resolved.
Okay. Will you be, notifying us about it, or?
It'll be on the agenda, I think, but at the very least, you can always give the town planner, the planning office a call, and they can certainly, mention like when they know it's gonna be on the agenda and that
All
kind
right. Thank you.
You can get the town website to send you notices of our agendas if you don't already. It'll help.
Right, and I will bring up one
Keep an eye
other,
on the website.
Yeah. I will bring up one other point.
Yeah.
That the Graves memo on this appears to have a date of there's a plan, a reference to plans that were last revised September 1st, 2023.
Well, Fiona can talk to them about that too.
I'm sure that's just. a
The
typographical
time
error.
machine is in effect.
Yeah, so we have to wait till September to get those revised plans.
That sounds like a plan. Okay, moving right along.
I don't think he'd like that.
I think we're done with 2C and we can move on to 3A.
I think we
Subject
are.
Control rules and regulations revisions. Who's taking that?
Just gonna share my screen. Give me 1 second here. I'm gonna try and find the best. I think that some of the PDF comments weren't they were cut off. So let me just orient myself here. So just an introduction to this. So we are working. The town has an ongoing consulting contract with VHB, who does a lot of our stormwater requirements, MS4, and they kind of regularly look at the documents that we have in place, like our subdivision regs, our zoning, et cetera, and offer suggestions for making changes. So our timeline for our zoning bylaws is a little bit stretched out further. So my thought process was get a jump start on the subdivision rules and regs and kind of talk through with you, with the board, and get your thoughts about some of the comments that were provided. And then I can report back to VHB about the thoughts of the board. And then we can go from there and hopefully start laying the groundwork to then ultimately make make agreed upon changes going forward. But I just wanted to, for purposes of this evening, I just wanted to provide the board with the comments that we've received to date and kind of start thinking about how, you know, what's being said here and how to implement. So I'm going to jump, I believe section starts at section 4. So there's roughly 1, 2, 6, I believe there's about 15 or so comments. So hopefully, you know, a lot of them are concentrated in the later sections of the subdivision regs, because obviously, you know, MS4 compliance is going to focus more on kind of design and making sure, you know, there's appropriate mitigation, stormwater, and low impact development practices, et cetera. So the first comment really kind of focuses on waiving some sections that are included here. Section 5.3.14 it actually references. So
Yeah, this is the
strongly
right. This is
Sorry,
the zoning bylaw, which recommends for a flexible development that certain subdivision rules and regulations requirements be waived. I will note for the record that the numbering of the suggestions, you know, in the zoning bylaw, it refers to some sections by title and number where the section either no longer exists or exists with a different number. So some of the specifics here need to be taken with a grain of salt.
Yep.
The
Apologies,
general
I
idea
did
is
not.
to
I was not able to do a deep dive into the comments before this evening. But I know that these were all but finalized. But the conversations were still going on with staff and VHB up until I left. So I will make sure to revisit these numbers. But I think so the purpose of really what Sarah is trying to say here is to basically waive sections of the subdivision rules in the interest of good design if it determines that the adequate access will be provided to all lots in the development by ways that will be safe and convenient for travel. So improvements in terms of design and more convenient, safe travel. So the development proposal is unique. The planning board is encouraged to waive standards for cartway width, curbing, right-of-way, dead-end streets, sidewalks, drainage, common driveway, and to use a 25-mile-per-hour design speed to establish engineering criteria for minimum grade, maximum grade, minimum tangent length between reverse curbs, and maximum grade within 50 feet of an intersection. So these, this is, dated a little bit. This is, January of 2022, but
I think the general idea here is to have the subdivision rules reflect the recommendations for flex developments that are currently in the zoning bylaw. Which
yes,
we can work the details, because there's as I said, there are some details that would need to be worked out as to the exact wording, because as I said, the zoning bylaw, the references are somewhat out of date. But the principle here is it's a reasonable idea.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I will make sure to follow up with them. Don't mind my typing. Typing kind of fast. Is there follow up to confirm and update the numbering? But all in all, does the board think that this recommendation makes sense? You want me to get more information? I mean, I know I have to update some of the numbering, but does anyone have any other questions that they want me to relay to the consulting team before we go to the next comment? I know that there was a lot in this one, so.
I'm not going to be much help here because I didn't even know that there were notes. I had no idea
Okay.
what the point of that document was. I opened it through the town website,
Mm-hmm.
the way you usually do, and it just came up with a document. I didn't see any even clue that I was missing stuff on the right. So I haven't had a chance to read it or think about it.
Okay. Yeah, this, we uploaded the PDF, I think, which had the comments integrated. But they, they come up as pop-ups, but it definitely probably wasn't the most
Yeah.
adequate way to do
And if
this.
you're, what I found is if you're viewing it on the website without downloading the document, you don't even see the comments at all.
That's what happened to me. That's what people should be able to do, or at least
Okay.
something that says, "Hey, you got to do more than just click that link that's supposed to be the material."
Okay.
In any
Should,
case,
in
I'm not
light
gonna
of,
have- I'm not going to have much help here. I'm not going to be much help here.
in light of the technical issues, should we revisit this at a later date? I don't want folks to feel like we didn't give them enough time to prep.
No.
Or we could briefly go through whatever worked for the board.
Am I the only one who didn't get this?
I mean, yeah,
I had trouble getting really any of the comments. Like I found like one or two, but I knew there was more than that from what I looked at.
yeah, I was able to, with a little bit of work and kind of knowing what to look for, I was able to review all of the comments.
Okay.
But
Okay. I'm happy to
Yeah,
bring
but-
this up at a later date, well, so the
But-
board can have
right.
time.
Yeah, if we can, it probably would be worthwhile to at least briefly, if not go through every comment individually, at least briefly discuss the gist of, the ideas that are being proposed.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I agree with Bob that it wasn't obvious from the way you normally look at a document on the website. You didn't see this. You had to kind of have an idea that maybe you should dig deeper. So, just broadly speaking, though, if I will give you my observations on overall what VHB is suggesting here, and with the exception of this first comment, which was like a good idea. Why don't we sort of take what the zoning bylaw says about dealing with flex developments and actually incorporate that into the subdivision rules, which I have no problem. I think would be reasonable. The rest of what VHB was proposing here, or commenting on here, suggesting here, was to follow up on something that we briefly discussed a couple of years ago when we were going through and updating the subdivision rules, and that was to adapt the subdivision rules and regulations to support low impact development, which basically comes down to three things that VHB has suggested in various details. But the three principles here, and we deliberately avoided thinking about this 2 years ago when we were doing the subdivision rules update, because we knew VHB is going to be working on this. But the three principles that they're proposing here is number one, to reduce minimum pavement widths for roadways and driveways. We dealt with minimum pavement widths for roads a couple of years ago. VHB is suggesting maybe we revisit that. But one of the ideas behind low impact development is to reduce impervious surface. So there are several recommendations in here related to reducing minimum pavement widths for the smallest of the minor streets and driveways, individual and common driveways. Also, part of that, they were suggesting maybe allow more homes on a single common driveway to further reduce the need for driveways. The second thing, and this is sort of the major thrust of low impact development, is to do storm drainage, manage stormwater using green infrastructure, i.e. swales and other natural structures, rather than plumbing, which is what we typically use. Structured storm drains. So they're proposing, and this is something that if you read up on low impact development, this is pretty, sort of I think the major part of it is to use green infrastructure, which among other things means not using curbs where you don't need them, because you allow with green infrastructure, low impact development, you want runoff to go off of the road and into your drainage swales and so on. Obviously, doesn't work everywhere, but the idea is for it to work where it makes sense. The third major point that they're pushing is the idea of allowing porous paving materials, which is something we can talk about. It's got issues. We've encountered that before a few years back on a project. Porous pavement, again, reduces runoff by allowing water to infiltrate directly into the ground underneath the pavement. So under certain circumstances, that can work. It's got some interesting issues that we can discuss either now or at a time when we've had more of a chance to review all of this.
Yeah,
So
that'd be a good
that's
thing.
basically my observation of what's being proposed here.
That would be a good thing to talk to Public Works about.
Yes, I think that's key. If you're going to propose, in fact, if going forward, I would say that if we are going to allow porous pavement to be used, for a street that will be managed by the DPW, we would only allow it with the approval of the DPW, because they have to be prepared to maintain it, which I don't think they have the equipment or the practices to maintain porous pavement now, because I don't think we have any.
Yeah, I don't know what additional means they need to maintain it, but I am concerned about other than perhaps repaving, what the implication there is at some point in the future, and the lifetime of the porous pavement compared to our customary pavement.
Yeah.
And there is a slight.
Are they going to be more expensive?
Yeah, I did a little bit of reading on porous pavement, and between the design of the porous paving and what you have to, what has to be there underneath the pavement, and the maintenance, the long-term maintenance is really key. They basically it's recommended once or twice a year, ideally vacuum sweeping and power washing.
Yeah. And the other slight complication on even considering porous pavement, with like sign up from DPW is, if the applicant says, well, we're going to make this a private road and it'll be a private road forever, and then 2 years later they try to submit for time to adopt it, that kind of thing, like, what do we do then? And that's just something to think about. I don't think it's a answer we can have right this second, but
yeah, no, that's something that would have to be approached carefully. At best, I would say we could consider allowing it, certainly not requiring it, but allowing it only for roads, allowing it only to the extent that DPW is okay with it, it says they have the ability to do it. They also talk about porous paving for bikeways and walkways, sidewalks. There again, sidewalks that are maintained by the town, that's we have to be prepared to maintain it. If it's something that's maintained privately, there has to be some assurance that the folks who are responsible for maintaining it are committed and able to do so. Right. And it's different from normal pavement.
Yeah, right. Didn't we just see something about new private ways need to be built to the town standards in the rules and regulations? And that would be a part of that, wouldn't it, Dave?
Yeah. So it's something. It's a nice idea, but if we're going to adopt it or even allow it, we need to make sure that it's done in a way that ultimately, basically you need to be able to maintain the effectiveness of the porous pavement, and that's not so easy.
I also don't want it to cost more than cost the town on an ongoing basis more.
Right.
Especially with New England weather, adds a lot of variables.
Yes, one of the details of I read a couple of articles and research papers on it. And there are some folks. Cold climates are very different from non-cold climates for porous pavement, but it's been done in Minnesota. There's some studies out of Minnesota, University of New Hampshire, and someplace I don't remember where in Canada, where they've done some work with porous pavements in cold climates. There's a small potential advantage in some cases, some situations where you might actually reduce the formation of black ice, because instead of sitting on the surface, the water will infiltrate down. But you have to worry about, you know, the sand that it has to be coarse sand, so the fine sand will clog up the pores in the porous pavement. Salt can be an issue, not so much for the pavement itself, but if the salt infiltrates into the ground and you don't have you can't treat things like you would in a drainage structure. Salt can be a potential problem. So there are a lot of engineering and maintenance issues that have to be thought about with porous pavement. And we
By
don't
the
know
way,
all the answers here.
no,
But
go ahead.
suffice it to say, like I said, if we want to consider it, we have to be aware that
Yeah.
it has to
And
be
I,
very carefully
as
done.
I say, let's hear from the DPW. I just watched a video today about glass aggregate. They take old, used glass, grind it up, and they use it the way many ways, but among them are some of the underlayments in paving, and it's supposed to be wonderful stuff according to the people who made the video, who have an interest in aggregate, glass aggregate, but it's supposed to be wonderful. I'm not sure whether that's the stuff they just used in Philadelphia for I-95. But that was some kind of glass. So that's an oncoming thing.
If I may chime in, so does the board think it probably, I'm seeing that, a lot of these comments, like what you're all saying makes perfect sense, maybe having a staff review with DPW and fire, because I know that DPW staff have been involved in these conversations, but not as closely with the subdivision rules and regs. So I might have them look, and some of these things I'm looking at, and I don't know how it would be. It would be challenging to reduce widths that don't align with the fire department standards. And there's suggestions in here, for example, to also consider revising the fire department standards. But I feel like that's something that we need to seriously discuss. And
I thought the flex had 22 feet as an, or at least reduced width as an option. The board was encouraged to consider things like that.
The flex width, was it 22?
Well, I'm not sure whether it was 22 or whether it was reduced.
Okay. Because 24 is the minimum fire standard now.
Well, but that may be because that's what the bylaw says or what they saw, based on some of the comments we've seen. Do they have a basis for the 24? Because lots of people are talking about the rules, the laws and the rules are making housing too expensive or more expensive. And
right.
They got, you're pulling both ways. But I do know, I'm pretty sure that the subdivision off to the, is it north? To the right, as you go up Wheeler Road, there's a little subdivision to the right. Originally, it was just a dead end road, but then we had a subdivision that connected to it and came around back out, and that was done early in the flex developments, and it was done, I think, to a narrower width. And I remember getting complaints from the chairman of the Board of Selectmen about that not being good back in the day. And it is, if you got 22 feet, a highway lane is 11 feet. So if you have cars and cars parking on the sides, which is the real problem. If anything parks, maybe a UPS truck, then you really don't have a whole lot of road. So pushing the road width down is, we're going to have to think about it.
Yeah, right. It's going to involve a lot of ongoing discussions and consensus. So if that's something that the board would like to see, maybe staff comments, and I can solicit those and bring them back to the board, and with my additional feedback, and kind of continue to have conversations with VHB about, we have to kind of double check some of these aren't that easy to implement. I'm happy to do that.
And be done with this for tonight.
I think so.
Sounds like a plan to me. And when it comes back, we'll all be able to see whatever's being discussed.
Natalia, I have a question about circulating this version, the Word version. Can we replace materials online with the Word version, please, so that people can, the board?
Yeah, I can try that. I know before we couldn't, we had to use PDFs. The other thing I will try that, and I was going to suggest I can send the Word version to each board member.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and I just want to make sure the public is able to see it as well. So anyone has comments or anyone's listening.
Okay, I'll figure it out.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I will stop sharing, and I will make sure to dig a little bit deeper on that, and we'll send you the information in the meantime.
Okay, is that okay with everyone?
Yep.
Yeah.
So ordered. Bills, any bills?
None.
No bills.
No bills. We saw some minutes, didn't we?
I move that we approve the minutes with any changes mentioned during our discussion.
Second.
Moved in second, discussion.
I didn't see anything in the minutes that I thought needed to be changed.
Same, actually.
If there's nothing, roll call.
Mr. Robbins.
Aye.
Mr. Davison.
Aye.
I vote aye. Mr. Hassinger.
Aye, motion carries. Staff report.
Okay, so I am just going to run through my list here. So I have been trying to work on securing some funding to get the feasibility study for the Institute Woods Trail. I found out the other day that we did not get the Mass Trails grant. So we'll have to go back to the drawing board on that and figure out how we can try and get that feasibility study updated like we were trying to do with CPA funds. So that one was a little bit of a downer, but that's okay. We'll continue to chip away. And Justin, I don't know if you are still having conversations with the CPC about that and keeping them in the loop, but feel free to, continue to share information with them and let them know that I'm interested in ideas to keep it alive. So that is my first thing. I did inform the board last time we met that we are working on adding a subzone B to our North Grafton Transit Village Overlay District. That kickoff preliminary meeting as required by the state is going to be on July 11th. So the select board will be meeting to review the materials that have been submitted by the developer Claremont, and then based on the outcome of that meeting, we will be, we may or may not be submitting it to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, formerly DHCD, so that if board members are interested in attending, please let us know so that we can post the meeting appropriately. But right now we're in a kind of waiting game with that. I had provided comments and followed up with our town council and our town administrator, and it looks like the application is in a good place. So that is moving along. We had our farmers market. Oh, sorry, Bob, go ahead.
Yeah. Would that end up requiring a zoning amendment?
Yep.
So it will come back past us.
Yep, it will. Mhm. Yeah, it's DHCD was very strict with us this, making sure that we need to get our letter of preliminary eligibility from them before we even talk about the zoning piece. So, but yes, you're right. It will be going back before the board, planning board. We had our farmers market, our master plan booth, very successful. CMRPC did a wonderful job. We gathered a lot of great data, did a lot of follow-up, fielded a lot of inquiries, and it was generally very successful. People seem to be excited about the master plan and the project, and we had a good amount of our master plan working group members attend. So thank you, Dave, and to the other members for joining. We are now, CMRPC is working on getting ready for the workshop, which we will be having on the 11th as well. I'm just realizing now. So I will need to be at the master plan workshop. And I will not be able to attend that select board meeting. We are not required, and planning board is not required to attend the select board meeting for the 40R, but yeah, it's unfortunate that they're falling on the same evening. But in any event, let us know if you would like to attend either of those events. It'll be at Apple Tree Arts, 7 o'clock. Excuse me. Our complete streets prioritization plan needs updates. I got some feedback from the state that things were missing. That was my first submission, so I was a learning curve for me too. So I'm working with Ian at CMRPC to get that turned around and resubmitted. It's on a rolling basis, and as far as I know, we're turning it around as fast as we can. But I just wanted to keep the board in the loop about that. We are looking at potentially the option of including 5 Millennium, which is the 40R that I was just speaking to, for MBTA communities compliance. I've reached out to the CMRPC team to run those numbers in the compliance module. I know we did have a little bit of conversation with that in the past. But, we want to just check and see, if we can use it and the numbers make sense, then we should. It's very logical and site. And I think, in terms of smart growth and smart planning, it's a good spot. Our MS4 updates continue. As you all know, I'm jumping, the subdivision regs and the complete streets policy will be the first 2 things I work on. And then the zoning will be the next thing. That's kind of a bigger bear. It's always a process. And I just completed a review for the comprehensive permit project for 116 Upton Street. That was a lengthy one, but got that done. Happy to answer any questions about that. Provided my comments to the ZBA today. That does seem like a good project in terms of if location wise, etc. I'm so excited to see us being able to add to our subsidized housing inventory. Continuing to work on our projects, including our Wi-Fi hotspots, our Whitney Park project. We have a project coming up with CMRPC, which will be our parcel acquisition priority listing that is scheduled to start in July. So we're excited for that. And lastly, I was working with the AppGeo consulting team to update our online GIS system. We created a survey, submitted it to staff, and started gathering some initial feedback and starting to kind of target the more low-hanging fruit, creating more layers, better integration with Mass GIS, just kind of overall making it more user-friendly. So if anyone on the board is interested in providing feedback, let me know, and I'm happy to share that survey. We did kind of a couple rounds with staff for now, and then happy to share that. And yeah, I'm definitely forgetting things, as I'm sure I always am, but I don't want to keep you here all night. Does anyone have any questions for me?
I don't think so. Apparently not.
I'm interested in the GIS stuff. I've done a modest amount of GIS work myself, so I'd be interested in seeing what we've got, what we've got proposed for that. And anything I can suggest, I don't know, but off the top of my head, but I'm interested in that.
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. I will send you the link to the survey and then also share with you the data that we were able to accumulate if you're interested. It was just from the initial rounds of feedback, but yeah, I'll definitely send you the link and that follow-up information.
Appreciate it.
I'm interested too.
Okay, perfect. I'll send it to everybody on the board. I think that makes the most sense.
Works for me.
Anybody else? Anything else on this? I don't hear that. Correspondence.
Nothing stuck out to me. I know
There's
there's
a.
one
I
thing.
see a communication about the shade of the tree. From tree law from the bylaw study committee.
Yes,
And
if any of you are interested, I'm sure the bylaw study committee would love to hear any feedback you have. And we talked a bit about the scenic roads bylaw update a couple meetings back.
Yep.
We've proposed an update to the shade tree bylaw, and although that's not strictly under the purview of the board here, it's still something that some board members might be interested in, and I'm certain that we on the bylaw committee would appreciate any feedback that you guys have on the shade tree bylaw.
Okay. Anything else? Hearing nothing. Reports from planning board representatives on town committees and CMRPC.
This past CPC meeting and a few before that were canceled due to scheduling concerns. But
What were?
CPC meetings were canceled. So I haven't had a CPC meeting since about a month before town meeting.
Yeah. Anything else? I mentioned about CMRPC last time. I didn't mention that this year I'll be vice chair again. Anything else that can lawfully come before us?
A motion to adjourn.
Second,
Moved and seconded, not debatable. Roll call.
Mr. Robbins.
Aye.
Mr. Davison.
Aye.
I vote aye. Mr. Hassender.
I vote aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all. See you.